Hello, everyone. This is our very first community conversation session for Solid Edge this year. Yes, I see the thumbs up. That's awesome. I'm Taryn Blake, Community Engagement Program Manager for the Siemens software community. I'll be your host for this enablement session. And today we are exploring what's new in Designcenter Solid Edge 2026. Our speaker is Sangamesh Chandur. He is a Siemens employee who's joined us back in 2011. He presently supports the Teamcenter integration for Solid Edge and Solid Edge portfolio products. He has around 24 years of experience in automotive, semiconductor, aerospace industries, supporting NX, Solid Edge, Teamcenter products, and he's been a part of our global technical enablement team since 2019. So he has his bachelor's degree in engineering from Karnataka University in India. So we are happy to have him with us today. And I'm excited to welcome him. He's going to take the screen and lead us from here.
Okay. Yeah. Hello, everyone. A very good morning, good evening to all of you. So this is the agenda for today. We'll go through the Designcenter X Solid Edge overview and challenges with respect to the data management. Later, I will be covering the Solid Edge built-in cloud data management, show the product demonstration live, and finally share some related resources which can be used as a reference later. So Designcenter X Solid Edge delivers the full capabilities of Solid Edge software in a secure SaaS environment, offering all the features you have, now with a flexible, secure, and personalized experience. It simplifies the IT operation to centralize the cloud-based license management, configuration, and updates, which are all managed by Siemens. This helps organizations of all sizes reduce the total cost of ownership and gain greater operational flexibility. With built-in data management and collaboration tools, this provides a secure and trusted environment where teams can work from a single source of truth at no additional cost. It also enables seamless collaboration across disciplines and geographies, allowing teams to connect effortlessly with colleagues and customers around the world. Additionally, AI-powered features offers real-time assistance, helping to minimize workflow disruptions and enhance productivity. With respect to managing the data locally, which represents several challenges that can impact efficiency and productivity. Local storage often leads to data silos where information is isolated with different departments. This makes it difficult to share and access critical data across the organizations. Users take time to find the right and the latest data. Keeping track of different revisions of files can be challenging and lead to errors and inconsistencies. Local storage can be more vulnerable to security breaches, data loss, and unauthorized access. Regularly backing up data and ensuring a quick recovery in case of hardware failures or other disasters is more challenging with local storage. Local storage hampers collaboration, especially for teams working remotely or across different locations. Managing data locally often involves manual processes for organizing, updating, and sharing files. This increases the risk of human error and reduces overall efficiency. Addressing these challenges typically involves adopting more centralized and automated data management solutions, such as a product management, a data management system, which can enhance collaboration, security, and scalability. However, setting up a PDM system, configuring it, and maintaining all the costly server infrastructure is a huge task. So, adapting to a cloud-based product data management system offers several advantages for organizations. Designcenter X Solid Edge offers a built-in cloud data management solution, which is powered by Teamcenter X, where the data is stored on the cloud servers and data can be accessed from anywhere with robust data security. This solution will also help with the easy upgradation of other areas of product lifecycle management as you grow. In today's session, we'll focus on built-in cloud data management, a feature included at no additional cost with the Designcenter X Solid Edge. This capability allows you to create and manage your engineering designs directly on the cloud. Since your data is stored on the cloud, you can easily share the design with coworkers, collaborate on changes in real time, request updates, and manage assemblies, track design releases and usage, maintain a single source of truth across your team. All upcoming talks will be centering around the built-in data management. So let me go deeper and share info on what exactly it covers when we say built-in cloud data management. So with built-in cloud data management, as I mentioned, it is powered by NX, where you can create and manage all your data on cloud, which is in the backend Teamcenter. You can check in, check out the designs, create and manage revisions, freeze and release the designs, digital mockup with the markup snapshot and image creation, which is key for any customer to communicate the design changes. Assign and complete the associated tasks, which are also managed on the cloud. Customer can also have discussions, which is another way to communicate with their internal teams, which is also integrated to their engineering data. Let me share some of the cloud data model and terminologies which might differ when you work with the local file data management. CAD design is an item type which is available for Solid Edge when you use with the built-in cloud data management. It is an item type in Teamcenter which can be thought as a container which holds various type of information such as your 3D model assemblies as well as the properties and relationship. Each CAD design is identified by a unique identifier, which is the item ID, basically which represents your product or a component or a document. CAD design revision, that is an item revision, which is available out of the box with this Designcenter X Solid Edge environment, which wherein you can use the item revisions to manage the changes and revisions of the product. Each CAD design can contain many item revisions. Dataset is also a container within each CAD design revision, which basically holds the information of your CAD model, drawings, PDFs, as well as specification. Basically, it can be a Solid Edge 3D part or a assembly or drawing file. Properties, item revision and data set can have a set of properties. Solid Edge documents, as you know, like when you work with local in unmanaged environment, you have the file properties and the custom properties. Out of the box, when you work with the built-in cloud data management, some of the custom properties are also mapped to your CAD design revision. So when you add the value to the properties, those also gets mapped to your CAD design revision. Folders is a container basically used to organize the objects. It's important to note the folder in Teamcenter is distinct from the folder in your Windows operating system. when a folder is deleted in Teamcenter, only the folder itself is removed, not the contents it references within that folder. Checkout is a process of exclusively taking the access to the model or design, uh, preventing the other users from modifying it while changes are being made by the designer. This basically ensures only one user can edit a design at a time, thereby avoiding conflicts and data inconsistency. Check-in is like once you modify the design, update the design, and save it back to the cloud, you can check in back the design so that the other users can also start working on that model or design if needed. There are different statuses also, which are part of this built-in cloud data management. The one is in the in progress where you are working on the model, and there are other statuses like you can freeze the design temporarily, and you can also release the design. The revision rule is especially when it comes to solid edge, is used while loading the assembly. So each item revision, that is the CAD design revision, can have multiple revisions. But when you are loading the assembly, you can define the revision rule. So out of the box, the revision rules are as saved. That is, it is the saved condition of all the components. That same condition are used when you open for the next time with the as saved condition. And there is also a latest revision rule which can be set by loading the assembly, which basically loads the latest revision of all the CAD design revisions. But with respect to the CAD design and CAD design revision, just I have added some more information here, which basically summarizes the contents of a CAD design, which is an item, as well as the CAD design revision. So CAD design is basically will have its own name and description, which is represented by a unique ID, using which you can also search in the database against that specific CAD design. Under each CAD design, that is the item ID, you have the CAD design revision. Again, that can also have its own name, and it also has the revision. You can also provide the revision as well as the description info. So under each CAD design revision, there is a data set which represents the 3D model or an assembly or any sheet metal part. And under that, like you can also manage all your drawing files, which is also stored under the data set, which is again under a specific CAD design revision. J2 dataset is a driven reference that is basically it gets created based on your 3D file. And with this environment, whenever you modify the 3D design, the J2 dataset also gets updated and stored under the same item revision, that is the CAD design revision. PDF of the drawing, in case if you have a drawing attached to the design revision, then a PDF also gets created on upload for every drawing which is available on the under the CAD design revision. Attachments again, like you can attach any other documents, kind of a Word file or PDF file, which basically represents maybe a product specification, which you want to manage under the same CAD design revision. So you can attach those kind of files under the design revisions. So when you have multiple revisions, again, like it can be represented by the same CAD design, that is the item ID, under which you can have multiple revisions. Like in this slide, I have shown the as revision as A and B. So a revision A can have its own 3D model drawing and the other attachments and driven references which gets created based on the 3D model and drawing. Similarly, other revision can have the updated model and drawing and corresponding driven references like JPG and the PDF files of the drawing. So let me start the demonstration here. So before starting the demonstration, so when you install the Solid Edge from the SSC, you also it also basically installs the Team Center Connection Manager, and it also updates the Team Center path, which is automatically gets set in your choose PDM integration under the Team Center environment. So you don't need to do anything here. So once you install the Solid Edge application from the SSC, that is the Siemens Software Center, it basically installs the Solid Edge as well as the Team Center Connection Manager, which also gets installed to your C app Siemens Team Center folder, and it also updates the Team Center URL, which gets updated under the Choose PDM integration, wherein you can also see the active workspace link, which gets also mentioned in the same dialog. So when I start the application, let me close this application and start it again. So just I want to show how you can start the Solid Edge in managed mode. So as I mentioned earlier, it's a, named user license. So as you start the application, it gets automatically logged into to your user account, and then if you are planning to use the built-in cloud data management, you also need to log into Team Center. So you don't need to provide any login credentials. It basically uses the same credentials of your named user account. So let me show that once the screen is up here. So at the top right corner here, that is your named user account, which you are logged in. And to log in into Team Center, basically you need to turn on the Team Center option here. So this enables you to log in to Team Center, wherein we can create and manage all your data on the cloud. So when I say on the cloud, it basically in the backend, all the data is stored onto the Team Center server. So let me start with the part operations. First is when you when you start creating any part or a drawing, out of the box, we do provide some templates, but you can add your own template. So I know like it is a very specific to each customer where they want to have their own templates, model and drawing and assembly templates. So in that case, they can create those templates and store it under maybe a specific directory. Like say in this case, I store my templates under C custom template here. And once that is done, I can specify the location where my Solid Edge session has to read the templates from. So from which directory it has to read. So in my file locations, if you go under user templates, that same folder is specified. So that is the reason, like when I start creating any new design, it basically shows your custom templates also. So I can go ahead and pick any of the template to create a new part or drawing. So in this case, I'm going to start with creating a part wherein I will add some features and continue showing, creating a drawing as well as saving that design to the cloud, that is to Team Center. So in this case, let me add a simple geometry by creating a sketch, which I'm going to extrude and also add some finishing operations like blend onto this model. Uh, So design is not mainly the part of this session. Just I'm trying to add some features so that I can go ahead and show the related operations of data management. So once you start your design, when you save it for the first time, it basically asks for the properties which are required for that to get stored on the cloud. So the minimum properties are the item ID, revision, and the item name. So you can go ahead with assign all, or you can enter. So when you're using the assign all, it basically assigns the next available unused of the free number from the database, or else you can also manually enter the ID. Let's say I'm going to use say custom 123 and revision as A. So by default, it has taken item name. So let me provide say maybe I will provide it as a custom bracket, and then also I can provide some other properties which can be associated to this CAD design revision. So out of the box, we do provide some custom properties which can be used to add more information, like say the item revision class, or the hardness or the make or buy information, or the material information. Let's say I would like to add the material for that data set, and also provide a part description. Say I'm going to say provide some part description as bracket XYZ. So once I add this information, I can validate also before performing the save operation. So basically, it checks whether the specific unique ID has been used or not. So in case it is used, there are a couple of other checks. Then it shows, it highlights in the issues column. But in this case, as this is a unique ID and all the other checks are passed, I can go ahead and complete the action. So basically, when I say perform action, it's basically stores this information back to the cloud. So when I first save, so it basically uses all the provided information, and it stores on the cloud. But when I perform the next save, it basically uh, saves the data to the local cache and not to the cloud. So there is a difference which I will show it. So let me show the uh, creation of the draft file first. So when you finish creating the model file, in case if you want to create a draft file, again I can use the option of drawing of active model. So when I create a drawing of active model, again I can choose any of the custom templates which are stored. In this case, I'm going to go ahead with the isometric draft format, and let me place some of the views, uh, and then add other information which is basically required for manufacturing. In this case, let me add few of the dimension, and then I can go ahead and save this data also back to the cloud. Okay. So when I save again, I'm saving first time the draft file. So again, in this case, it will ask the other parameters which needs to be added for the draft file. So in this case, it uses the same item ID as well as the revision and item name. In addition to that, you can provide any of the other information. Uh, Basically, we want to maintain the same information which has been put on the master. So I'm going to go ahead and save this draft file also back to the cloud. So the item type, the default item type, which I was mentioning earlier on the slides, is the CAD design. CAD design type is a default item type. It's only the item type which is available for Solid Edge when you use the Solid Edge with the built-in cloud data management. So I'm going to go ahead and save this data back to the cloud. No, let's once it gets saved, we'll see some of the operations like how we can open and open the dialog and search for that file. So in this case, as both the draft and model files are added, so it is going to provide me the CPD dialog again here. So I'm going ahead with the save operation. And once it saves, we'll see how we can search for same design and open that part in the solid edge. So then again, we can go ahead and check this information on the cloud using the active workspace. Let me close the file here. And now let's see how we can search for that part and open that part of the drawing, associated drawing. So for that, I'm going to use the open dialog here. Uh, if you have recently created the part, it is also available from your recent file history from which you can open. But in case if it is not there on your recently opened history, then you can use the open command to search for that design. So in this case, you have the option to search based on item ID or item name and description. So in this case, let me search based on the item ID. Uh, by providing the name. So I can use the ASCII based searches also, like say I can use the custom and put the star as a character here in case if I don't know the full item ID. So here it provides basically they provides that same file, and you can see when you expand the CAD design revision, this is the CAD design, that is the item ID, under which we have CAD design revision, and under which we have the solid edge 3D model as well as the draft file. So now I found this part using the search option based on the item ID. So again, you can search based on the item name as well as the description also. So if I go ahead and search based on the say uh, custom bracket. So that was the item name I give. So if I search no, it will not show you any result because there are no matching item IDs which are found with the custom bracket here. So that is the item name which we have provided. So that's the reason we can use the, in case if you know the item name, that in that case we can use the item name as the filter here, and then you can search for that part. In this case, again, it is going to show you the same part here. Similarly, I can search based on item description, which is here in this case is bracket XYZ. So if I go ahead and turn on the item description, I can search based on the item description. So again, it will show the same results. So you see, there can be multiple uh, uh, item IDs which can have the same item name or the same item description, but the only unique thing is the item ID, which is unique. So if you know the item ID, then it's better like you can search based on the item ID. In case if you don't know the item ID, in that case we can use the other option to filter and then find out the right part before you load into your solid edge session. Again, while opening, like you have other options, like say, for example, I have kept, I stored these under specific folder. So in that case, I can use the filter options here. So before I open it here, so if I go ahead and I can filter based on assemblies or based on any type of solid edge documents, you can see the list gets updated. So it to show the specific items which have only the stored as a part or assembly or a draft file. So it basically shows these are the two files, two items, which has the draft inside it. So when I use the filter option as draft, so it basically shows out of that folder, which can contain multiple items. It basically shows only the items which have a draft in it. So if you see both of these, both of these item revisions, those have draft inside it. Okay. So let me go back again and search for the just created part, which is the custom 123. If I select the item revision and open, it basically opens the 3D model. Or else if I can select the model file. In that case, it opens only the model. If you are specific to open only the drawing file, then then it's better to select the draft file and use the open dialog. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and select the item revision, which basically opens the 3D model. So once you load the part inside your Solid Edge session, uh, there are tools using which you can open the associated draft also. So throughout this session, I will be mainly focusing on the Theme Center ribbon, which basically helps us to find, load, or save the documents from the server or to the server. So in this case, if I want to open the related draft file associated with this 3D model, in that case, I can use the open draft command. So if I say open draft, basically it opens the associated draft, which is attached under same item revision here. If there are multiple draft, in that case, it will also show that list. And from that list, you can pick and choose the one which you want to load into your session. Okay. So this was on the part creation and saving the data to the cloud from the Solid Edge. But how we can view the data which is stored on the cloud. So for that, we are going to use the active workspace. So wherein you can visualize the 3D model, the lightweight 3D model or the assembly. You can preview the drawing. You can view the metadata associated to each design revision, CAD design revision. So to view that information on the cloud using the active workspace, we have two options here. One is the active workspace and the other is the Theme Center information. Active workspace basically opens up the home page. So we are viewing the hosted active workspace attached to Solid Edge. And there is also a standalone active workspace browser using which you can browse your data or view the data. So the hosted active workspace is very much required for the CAD designers or advanced users or the administrators, whereas the lightweight standalone active workspace, which you can open in a browser, that can be mainly used by the shop floor team or the design reviewers who just want to view the data, view the CAD model, or view the PDF of the drawing. For them, they can use the standalone browser. Maybe at the end, I will also show the how we can open up the active workspace on a browser. So this is basically the hosted active workspace window, which is much more integrated to your CAD application, wherein you can search for the design, load that design into Solid Edge, and view all the metadata information associated to each CAD design revision. So in this case, it basically goes to the home page when I open up. So if I close it, and I can also use the Theme Center information. Theme Center information basically takes you exactly to the loaded document on Solid Edge. So I have load the active document on the Solid Edge is this item revision, that is the custom 123, which is the item ID, CAD design ID, and basically we load it. It loads the that specific revision, that is the revision A of the item ID, which is custom 123 here, wherein you can view the properties of that revision, and also view the other things like say the solid edge part associated for solid edge part, which is a data set under that CAD design revision. And whenever you create a 3D part, as I said earlier, a driven reference, that is a lightweight format of the 3D model, also get attached or gets created and attached under the same item revision, which is a direct model JT file. It's a JT file which can be also used to preview the data in using the 3D here. So when I view the data, you can preview that data. So basically, when you load using the 3D on the hosted active workspace or on the standalone browser, it basically uses the GT information which is attached under the same item revision here. Okay. So let me go back to the overview and show you the other areas. Like say one is the part, and that is the driven reference. GT is a driven reference, and you also have the draft file, which is also the related drawing which we created for that same CAD design revision. As the draft file is present, it also created a driven reference of that drawing in a PDF format. So the one is the driven reference of JT file, the lightweight JT file, which gets generated based on your part, and the one is the drawing file, which gets generated in case if you have a draft file under the CAD design revision. The same information can also be viewed. More information associated to these files can be also viewed in the information window under the named reference. You can, as I selected the drawing, it is basically showing only the drawing. If I unselect the drawing, if I go ahead and select the CAD design revision only, so in that case, it basically shows all the attachments which are part of that CAD design revision. So you can find the part, draft, as well as PDF and the JT file. Okay. So you can edit the properties here also. You can change the item name, that is the CAD design name, and the other properties also, like you can add in the description for that is the item revision description, that is the CAD design revision description, which you can add it by editing. Like in case if you want, you can go ahead and edit this item revision and add the properties. Like say, for example, in this case, I can go ahead and say add the description as a bracket for P880 projects, something like that. So once I add that property, I can go ahead and go back and save that edits. So those also gets updated when you inside the solid edge application if you view those properties here. So go back and view the properties here. So same thing gets updated under the item division, which is loaded in the solid edge session. So you can see the description, which also got updated. So some of the properties can be added, can be modified in CAD, and some of the properties can be modified both in Teamcenter, that is the active workspace, or in the CAD application. Some are basically can be edited only inside the Teamcenter, that is the active workspace here. Okay. So the property also gets updated, the material property, which is a custom property, which we added in solid edge application, and that information also got updated, and it gets mapped to item revision, one of the item revision property of material. Okay. Let me close this and to continue on this. So The next option is of shape search, which is not which will not work when you're working in the built-in cloud data management, because it requires the GLS to be set up on the server, and it's not available out of the box for built-in when you use the built-in cloud data management. It basically shape search helps you to find the data based on existing data across the database. So it basically shows the identical or similar parts which are available in the database based on your created geometry. Okay, so that option is not there, and let me skip the next option. I will come back to the extract translated files later, and let me go ahead and show the next operation. So that is the save operations. So under save operations, we have a save as. Save as basically creates a copy of your active document, and in this case, you have once you do the save as, because this part contains both model and drawing, it gives the option to save both part and draft file. So again, in this window, you can use the assign all option, which basically assigns the next available number. So the item ID will be same for both of the part, for both of the files under that same design revision. And if you don't want the draft to be performed, basically considered for the save as operation, in that case, you can use the exclude draft. So it need to be enabled first before performing the save as operation. So when I use the exclude draft on, when I make it on and go ahead with the save as operation, it basically loads only the design and not this basically this step basically considers only the part file for performing save as operation and the not the draft file. Okay. Similarly, like if you go ahead and perform the save as new item, so which is same as save as operation, because this option would have differed when you use Solid Edge or Solid Edge X with on-premise Teamcenter or Teamcenter X. So in that case, you can change the item type here when you are performing the save as with the new item. So we can define the item type when it performs the save as operation. But because the only available type is CAD design for built-in cloud data management, the both this operation results in the both this operation have the same results. So let me go ahead and uh, perform the save as. So when I perform the save as, let me use the save as new item. No, sorry, I think it basically has to. Okay, no, let's see save as. So basically, it has to consider both the model and draft file as I disabled exclude draft option here. So I can go ahead and use the assign all option this time to make it quick, and it basically provides the next available free number, and it gets assigned. And again, like you can change the item name or the dataset name as per your requirement here. So maybe I will modify the item name, and I can also specify by default to which directory it should get saved. So in this case, by default, it has taken one directory. I can change the directory, the folder basically, to which it should get saved. The folder is, as I said earlier on the slide when I was covering the slide, folder is just a container. Even though I add it by creating a new folder and selecting that folder, it doesn't mean it's only available to me after creation. So once I create any item and save it to the cloud, any other user in your organization can search for the same part and load it into their solid edge session. So in this case, I am going ahead with saving it to some new stuff folder, which is available out of the box. I can change the properties or item description as needed. So let me make it as ABC, and I can perform the upload here. So basically, this covers the save as operation, uh, save as new item, which basically uh, results in exactly same as save as operation. And excluding draft, we saw that. Now let's see the save translated option. So basically, in case if you want to export the part in different formats like IGS or STEP or Parasolid. In that case, normally we use the uh, save as translated. Save as translated again has two options here. So if you go here, save as translated basically saves uh, the data in different file formats. This particular save I enable the by default the save translation to Teamcenter is enabled. So that's the reason when I say save as translated, out of the box we enabled only two formats to be supported. One is the Parasolid and the step. So if I select the step and perform go ahead with the default export options and save it, it basically saves under that same item revision, that is the CAD design revision. A step file will also get created. So if I say step export as a step file, save using the save as translated and perform continue with that operation. And if I go ahead and check on the cloud using the active workspace, you can find the translated file, that is the step file, the output of step file on the active workspace. So I can use the Team Center information, which directly jumps onto that page, uh, which is active on your session. And if I go ahead and go down and see, we can see the image file. It basically stores as an image data set under the same item revision. So if I go ahead with checking the information and under the name reference, you can see the step file. So you can download these files individually also to a local machine, like not only the step file, you can download the part file or the JT file or the drawing file using the download option here, which is available for all the documents under the CAD design revision. So the next is if you want to export out of your Team Center or out of your cloud to your local directory. In that case, I will turn off the save translation to Team Center and then again perform the save as translated. So when I turn off and perform this operation, it basically provides me an option to select a folder from your local machine. So in the here again, like you have all the different file formats which are supported for this export operation using the save as translated. So in this case, I can go ahead with the parasolid file and I will say export it. So basically that basically stores the parasolid file of this item division in your specified directory. So, so whenever you create a new file or a document, Solidus document, or open an assembly, uh, in that case, by default, that gets checked out to you. So that means other users, if they open it, it will be checked out for them. So they will not be able to modify the design. It's only you basically who has checked out can modify the design here. So the design, yeah, by default that gets checked out. And if you want to cancel the checkout, you can use the cancel checkout. So cancel checkout will not save. It basically it basically cancels the checkout. It basically checks in that part so that other user can If they needed, if they want to modify the design, they can use the cancel checkout to modify, to give access to the other designer who can load that same part and modify the design. Let's see the assembly operations. Let me close this all window here and open up an assembly and show some of the assembly operations like how we can search and load an assembly, how we can replace a part, how we can connection got, maybe there is some problem with my internet, so let me close this. I think that was closed. So basically, I'm going to show the some of the assembly operations, like adding a part onto your assembly, and other operations like replacing the part, and performing uh, loading a latest revision of a part onto your assembly, and also adding a part from the unmanaged environment. So for this, I'm going to open up. Let me browse that part. Sorry, the assembly, and once it's loads, let me perform some of the operations here. So I'm going to use the item ID because I know the item ID uh, of that assembly here. So once I perform the search, it basically shows. And while opening the assembly, as I mentioned earlier, you have the option to uh, specify the revision rule. So as saved is a condition in which it got saved earlier before this session. Latest means it will load the latest CAD design revisions of all the documents on that assembly. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead with as saved and open up that assembly to show some of the assembly operations. Once I show the assembly operation, maybe I will continue with some of the change management process and finally end with some of the additional capabilities which I want to highlight in this session here. I think I will take another 15-20 minutes just to cover some of the assembly operations. So 1 hour is not sufficient to cover all the operations, and my main intention was to cover all the operations so that uh, the whole team feels comfortable using this built-in cloud data management. And the plan is also to cover another next session, session 2, for which also I have a certain agenda already, which I'm going to show at the end. So let's start with the assembly operations. So I have loaded searched the assembly and loaded that into my session. And the next is to load. So as I loaded with the as saved condition, you can see for one of the file here, uh, which has multiple revisions in it. So how do I can check that multiple revisions? So I can go ahead and use the revision command here. So when I select that document and use the revisions command, so it basically shows all the revisions which are under that tag design. That is the item ID. So in this case, there is B revision also. So let's see how we can replace that revision with another revision. So for that, I'm going to edit the subassembly. So whenever I edit or open a direct document, as I said earlier, by default it gets checked out. Because in this case, I am replacing a revision or adding or replacing a part. It is better to say that once we complete the operations here. So in this case, this specific design has multiple revisions, so I can change revision A with the revision B. So I can use the replace with revision, and I can go ahead and search for that revision based on the item ID. And basically, which shows both the revision here. I'm going to select the revision B, and I'm going to replace that revision with the latest revision. So in this case, as I replaced with the B revision, you can see it also gets updated on the Pathfinder. So the next thing is the inserting a component. So how do we can insert a component here? So uh, like say, if I want to add a new component, in this case, I'm going to use the insert component. So insert components, once I start the operation, it basically, the Teamcenter part library opens up, wherein again, I can search for a design based on item ID, name or description, just like how we have the option on file open. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead with the search based on the item ID. As it finds out the part, I can drag it and add it into my assembly here. So let me place that temporarily somewhere here. Okay. So it gets added there, and it also updates the BOM, so which you can see in the Pathfinder here. So the new component which got added. So the next use case is replacing a part with a different part. Or let me show before that replacing or adding a part from the unmanaged environment. So this use case also is very important. Like when you want to, like say for some supplier parts which are available on their portal, normally you download that part and that is available on your local machine. But you want to add that part into your assembly, which is on the cloud, which is on the Teamcenter. So in that case, I can use the parts library, which basically wherein I can navigate to that part which I had downloaded, and I can drag that part and add it into my assembly. So as of now, it is added uh, to the assembly, but still not saved into the onto the cloud. So once I perform the save operation, that gets added or uploaded onto the cloud here. So finally, we'll perform the upload and we'll see that changes onto that assembly here. So the next is replacing part with a different part. So in this case, let me select this motor here and show you replacing the part with the another part. So there is a part uh, main motor. So I'm going to use again the replace part with the another part. So I'm going to use the replace part here. So as I can go ahead and find the replacing part and then replace it into my assembly here. So here I can go ahead and type in that number, or I can search again like based on my item ID or item name or description. In this case, I'm searching based on the item ID. Select that part and replace that part with an existing part. So as I replace, even the Pathfinder gets updated to show that new part which has been added here. Okay. So if we go to the subassembly, we can see uh, did I search for the same part? I think it looks like I searched for the same part here. So I would have searched for another part, uh, which has a different prefix here. But anyway, so replace part. So you can try those other use cases with the replace part functionality here. So the next option uh, which I am going to show is the creating a new part in context of the assembly. So how we can create a new part in context of the assembly. So we can use the create part in place. So in case if you're planning designing a bracket, so for that case into a specific subassembly, I can make that subassembly, I can edit that subassembly, and then I can start creating a new part in place. So when I create a new part in place, basically I can again define the templates, select any template, custom template, and then go ahead and continue the operation. Here again, like as you create, it basically pops up the new window, new document dialog, wherein we can assign the required values. That is the item ID minimum are required of the item ID, revision, and the item name. And you can, if needed, you can go ahead and add in the other values here. Say, for example, in this case, I want to add the part number as say uh, as the double line, four double, something like this. So I can perform this, and basically that's also gets saved under that subassembly, and that also gets updated back to the cloud here. So as I completed a couple of operations here, like replacing a part, creating a new part, replacing with a revision, and creating a new part in context of the assembly, I can go ahead and perform the upload option. So upload option for upload, first I can perform save and then upload, but I can directly also do an upload. So basically, save operation saves the data to your local cache, which you can find again inside your cache assistant. So cache assistant shows all the files which are loaded onto your cache. So all these documents are loaded, and it also highlights certain components with a different color. That means those are checked out by me in this case. So when I do perform a save, it basically saves into local cache, whereas upload basically uploads that part back to the cloud, that is back to the Teamcenter server here. So if I, without performing save operation, if I go ahead with the upload, that means it basically saves as well as it uploads that changes back to the cloud. And there is also a difference between upload and check-in. Both basically saves the data back to the cloud, whereas upload uh, saves the data back to the cloud, but the checked out components are still in that checked out condition. Whereas if you perform check-in, that means it basically saves the data back to the cloud and checks in all the checked out parts. Okay. So in this case, I am going ahead with the upload option, and I uploaded the data back to the cloud here. So let me go back and uh, perform the other operations here. So the next operation which I was going to highlight is revert. Revert basically, if you have loaded a part or loaded an assembly, and if you have modified the structure by adding a part or removing a part, but later you come to know, like, if you have performed some incorrect steps, so basically you want to revert it back to the initial condition how you loaded that assembly. So basically, in that case, you can use the revert operation. It basically closes this assembly and loads the latest version from the cloud, that is from Teamcenter. So this operation, the revert, variant condition, upload models we use are specific to assemblies. Variant condition, I would say it's enabled here, but it's not supported with the built-in cloud data management when you work with the TCXE. So basically, if you create multiple variants of a product on Teamcenter, that is on Active Workspace, maybe using Active Workspace, in that condition, in that case, you can load a specific variant, or you can load multiple variants using the variant configuration option. But with Solid Edge X with TCXE, this functionality will not work, because with this it is not possible to create multiple product variants on Teamcenter side. Upload model views, basically if you have a PMI information for a part or a drawing, you want to upload that information when the JT gets created. So that time you can use the upload model view. So in addition to your 3D part geometry, the PMI information also gets stored. Those same views which you have defined in the Pathfinder are also get stored under the GT file. So when you view that information inside the Team Center or Active Workspace, you can load those model views just the way you load it or view it inside the Pathfinder in Solid Edge. Okay, let's move on and show the extract translated file. So this is the one option which I skipped earlier because I wanted to load an assembly and show that that is the extract translated file. So one is using the extract translated file. So basically, uh, when you load an assembly, what it does is like you can select a subassembly or some documents from the Pathfinder, or you can select the top assembly. And basically, what it does in the backend is all the linked parts or all the associated drawings or like the PDF file or the extracted file like Parasolid file or the step file for those documents gets downloaded to your specified directory on this dialog here. So if I go ahead and create a new directory, let's say maybe I will create a new file. Maybe so all the PDF file or the Parasolid or the step files, those can be extracted and stored to your local specified directory. In this case, let me name it as uh, demo here and select that folder. And so as I said, like you have the option to include components from the selected assemblies, all the parts, or you can select specified subassemblies or documents here. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead with include components from the selected assembly, and you can specify which references, which file types you want to export, like whether you are interested only in Parasolid or step file or a PDF file, drawing file attached to the each design revision which is loaded in the your Pathfinder. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead with all option. Similarly, you can define the other filters and let me continue with the extract operation here. So as I complete this operation, in the back end, it checks each design revision. If it has an attachment of that specific type, that is the Parasolid file or a DXF file or a PDF file, it extracts all of them and creates a copy into that specified directory here. So if I go ahead and open up that specific directory onto my download folder, so it takes some time, but yeah, I think it has created maybe for uh, demo. Yeah, so you can see the Parasolid file, the XF file, the step file, or the PDF file, which are attached to the CAD design revisions. Okay, next, let's see the chain management process, how we can initiate the chain management process and work on those tasks. Basically, how we can collaborate for the on the change management process. So if I go back to my hosted active workspace, in the interest of time, basically we created already a task and started a discussion. It was basically created by my colleague Nitin, who has created a task as well as a discussion, started a discussion for me here. So I can see that on my homepage, like the chain management process. In this case, we have specified specifically to modify the support mount as the mounting location has been changed. For more details, I can use the task to find the information. So any designers can initiate a task as well as the discussion. So these discussions as well as the tasks are managed and saved on the cloud along with your engineering data. So instead of using other communication channels like Microsoft Teams, so for your engineering design changes, we can use the discussions as well as the task, which also are attached to your engineering data. So if I open up the task, basically it highlights what I need to modify, wherein my colleague Nitin has provided the description to modify the support mount design, and he has also attached the top level assembly, which is already opened in the back end, and also provided the motor support mount reference. That is the part which needs to be modified here in this case. So if I go ahead and open up the top level assembly, it basically loads the structure for the assembly, and wherein you can also view the metadata information associated to that assembly, or even you can view the 3D, that is wherein it uses the lightweight JT data to load that assembly. So when I basically load that assembly inside a hosted active workspace, I can view the attachment. These attachments also can be created using the snapshot or the markup, which is available again when you load the 3D. So in this case, I attached an image just to show the user like where or which components needs to be modified here, and then I can use the open option. I can open using the open in solid edge, or open using the open in solid edge option. So basically that loads the assembly into your session. And this hosted active space is a more or less dialog. That means you can work parallelly between the two windows here, or you can, if you are using the dual monitors, then in that case we can move this dialog on another monitor so that we can maximize that dialog. Okay, so I already viewed what needs to be modified. In this case, the support mountain needs to be modified. So I'm going to go ahead, close this window just to show the solid edge screen, wherein I'm going to load that part and modify the design here. So let me hide this part, and you can see that the existing support mount is not exactly matching, especially when it comes to the slot location here. So in this case, there is a difference. It is not exactly center because the mounting location has been modified. I can go ahead and load this part in a separate window, or I can edit it in context of the assembly. Just for clarity purpose, I am going to open it in a different window and modify the design and come back to the assembly and also cross check whether it is exactly aligning with the bolt there. So I'm going to move it by say 5 mm, and I can come back and check the assembly when before I update the drawing and release that part. So in this case, as I moved it, I know the location is correct, and I can go ahead and open the drawing using the open draft option here. So basically, it opens up the associated drawing, which can be updated and then saved back to the cloud before I release this design. So I'm going to update the views, and now I can go back and directly perform check-in operation. So in this case, I know the part is updated. I want to save that information back to the cloud, and parallelly, I also want to check in that design to the cloud before I release that part for manufacturing. So let me go back and save the model also. Then I can perform the release operation. Okay, so similarly for model, I'm going to say check-in. So presently it is checked out. So when I perform check-in, it basically uploads that part as well as it checks in that part. So once that is checked in, I can perform the release step here. So if the item revision, that is the CAD design revision, is checked out, in that case it will not allow you to release the item revision. So for release, we are going to use the new workflow process where I'm going to use the default templates which are available here. So that is the design release process, using which I can release the the design division here. So under the CAD design division, you can see there is a model file, draft file, the drawing file associated to your draft file, and also the JT file. So you can see the flag also gets set once I release this data. So as I perform the release operation, you can find the flags which has been set against that CAD design revision. And similarly, I can go ahead and now update the information back to the design manager here. So in this case, because Nitin has assigned the task, I'm going to first the task where I'm going to update the task. So just to mention it as like as the task has been completed. I can add in the comments like completed the design and release the design, something like that. And once I complete the task, the information gets updated back to Nitin in this case. So I updated the task. Similarly, I can go ahead and update the discussion also, which is started by Nitin here. So in this case, I can go ahead and mention saying that I've modified the design, modified and released the design. Okay, so I can the same information will also be seen by the design manager, in this case Nitin here. So let's see some of these capabilities here. Let me move back to my solid edge session and go back to the assembly. Okay, so the first operation is cross highlighting between solid edge and active workspace. So let me move back to the hosted active workspace using the team center information, which basically loads that same active document which is loaded into a solid edge session, which also loads the BOM here. And there are options to cross highlight also, like say when I select a part and I can use the select in active workspace. So I selected a part in solid edge. Now I want to cross highlight the corresponding component which is loaded into my active workspace session. So if I use the select in active workspace, the corresponding components, it basically navigates and highlights, selects the corresponding component in your BOM structure on your hosted active workspace. So if you go down, you can see the upper arm also getting highlighted. Similarly, I can select any other part and use the select in active workspace. Basically, that selects the corresponding part. Similarly, I can do the reverse also. Like I can select and design from the BOM structure and use the other option, that is the reverse of the first option, that is select in solid edge. So when I select a part and use a select in solid edge, it basically highlights that part inside my 3D display. Similarly, I can select any other part and use the select in solid edge option to highlight that part inside my 3D display. This can be set by default also. For that, we need to use the manage options, which are under settings option. By default, those are turned out just for the performance. Not every time we want to cross highlight between the components. In case if you want to cross highlight most of the time, in that case we can switch on the option of cross highlighting under active hosted active workspace. So when I switch on these two options, which are under manage. So under manage, there are a couple of settings which can be set when you are working in the manage mode, that is with built-in cloud data management. So these two options, if I set, in that case, if I by default, if I go ahead and select anything inside solid edge, by default that goes to the corresponding component in hosted active workspace. Similarly, the reverse is also true. Like I can select any component in active workspace, again it gets selected uh, inside uh, inside your solid edge session. Downloading of the document. So this is also very important. Like in case if you want to download an assembly to your local machine folder, in that case, you can use the cache assistant dialog to download the data into your local machine. So maybe you want to download a part or a drawing or an assembly. So in that case, that has to be available in the cache assistant. Then you can use the create package option to download that the existing data which is in the cache to your local machine here. So if I can go ahead and download using the create package. In case there are some documents which are not available in the cache and still you want to download, in that case, first we need to use the download option. That is the download from the cloud to your local cache, and then you can use the create package option. So either you can use the file open option. When you use a file open and open an assembly or a document that gets saved to your local cache that is available in the cache assistant, or you can use the download option and search for any part, and then that gets downloaded to your local cache. Then you can perform the create package option. So before extracting, downloading any specific document, that has to exist in the cache assistant dialog here. So then only I can perform the create package. So I can name it as required here. So say like in this case, I will just name it as uh, some project name by provide a project name. So this basically takes some time here because this is like around 400 files which are getting downloaded and zipped under that directory. It is specified where I have specified the folder location with the file name of that zip file. So it will take a few seconds, and once it performs, you can see that zip file under this directory where all the files are downloaded from the cache. The next operation which I'm going to show is the favorites in active workspace. So this is also very important in case if you are working repeatedly or frequently on certain design or a project, you don't want to search every time on every day when you start the work. Without searching, you want to just go use the favorites or use the shortcut to load that part into a solid assembly. So in that case, those frequently used or frequently used CAD designs which are working, then you can save them as a favorites, and then those are favorite. Those will get appeared on your favorite section under your home page. Then from where you can navigate quickly and open that assembly or a document here. So if I open up active workspace, so presently it loads the active document, which is a top level assembly. In case you are frequently working on this assembly, that means you can save it as a favorite here. So you can go back and I can say this manage, under manage, you can see add to favorites. So add to favorites will add that CAD design revision onto your home page. So as I added, you can see that part is now available under favorites. So like this, multiple designs can be added as a favorite. So it basically helps you to quickly find that part and load that part or open that part into your solid edge session. And active workspace link, as I said earlier, like you can find the active workspace link from the PDM integration or using the options here. Like I can go to the preferences which are set by default, and then I can open up the from there I can find the active workspace link. Like say you can find this link from the PDM integration also, or you can use the preferences which are set and from there you can find the link using the Active Workspace. So this is the Active Workspace link which you can use to load the Active Workspace. So it's always better to be on the latest version. So which are already available on your support center. So when I open the support center, you can see the solid edge application, and we can be on a latest version. And on the Team Center side, we keep on updating the latest version. I think the present version, with the latest version on the Team Center side is 2512, which is released in last December, which I believe will get updated maybe in the month of April for all customers. So that's it from my side. In case if you have any questions, I will try to answer them, or I can take up those questions and reply them on our community page. Thank you everyone.
I do want to share just a couple of announcements. So if you didn't see in the chat, the link to the forum, you can click on the link right there. So it's siemens.com, Solid Edge Community, and just bookmark that page. That's where the recording will be on Friday. So you can go there. You can also follow the topic. That's what the arrow is indicating. If you're normally in the community, then that will let you know. You'll see when we post the recording. Realize Live, if you're not familiar, this is our in-person customer event that happens in the Americas and Europe, and we've been doing the past 2 years in India. So if you're in one of those locations nearby or would like to go to one of those locations, Detroit, Michigan, Amsterdam in Netherlands, or Bengaluru, if I'm even saying that right, but in India, if you're nearby and want to attend, you can click on those links for more information for the customer event. And then my last announcement is for Solid Edge. The marketing team has told me that you can post a review on G2 and get a $25 Amazon gift card if you use the link there or use the QR code. So if you go through that process, they're able to track it and they can issue you a gift card in exchange for your review. Detailed review, be honest. We don't want you to feel like you have to say something you don't want to say, but we appreciate you doing that if you're able. So that is all I have for announcements. Again, that's the link to the forums where the recording will be on Friday. And yeah, this has been a really thorough session. And if there is anything that didn't get answered, but I think most of the questions got answered in the chat, we can post those in the community. And thanks, Sangamesh. Well, I look forward to the next session whenever you come back to us in a few weeks.
Sure. Thanks, Erin. Thank you all.
Yeah. All right, everybody. We'll see you in the forums.